Now I'm here at the AXA Training Centre where Liverpool have been holding an open training session ahead of their final group stage Champions League game, which comes against PSV Eindhoven away from home tomorrow. Now, in truth, there's not an awful lot riding on this fixture. Obviously, Liverpool are top of the standings at the moment. They've had a fantastic campaign, winning every group game so far, but they're not actually guaranteed to finish top. There's a possibility that if results go a certain way, Barcelona could possibly leapfrog them on the last day of the group stage. But fortunately enough, it doesn't actually matter whether you finish first or second, and Liverpool are guaranteed a top two finish at the very least. That means that those top two sides, they will avoid each other across the remainder of the draw. They get the best seed-ins, and of course they avoid that playoff that you could be involved in if you finish outside the top eight. So not an awful lot riding on this fixture. But that just makes the fact that the team news that we've got to bring to you here and what the squad might look like even more interesting, I think. Arne Slot did acknowledge that there's not a big difference between first and second in his post-Lille press conference, and I think he's really going to live up to that in terms of showing how much it really matters to him, this final group stage game. Now I'll start with the team news itself and start with some really good news actually, which is that we did see Joe Gomez take to the pitch there alongside his teammates. Obviously he's been out for a while with a muscle injury, but looking like he's getting back to full fitness. My understanding that he's not going to be involved in the full session potentially today, so there's a possibility he doesn't make the trip to PSV, but I think it's really, really good news to have a squad option like Joe Gomez coming back in. He can cover right back, left back, centre half as well. He hasn't been missed too much because Liverpool are okay for injuries elsewhere in that defence, but it is really, really important and I think useful to have an option like him available. So making a big step towards coming back and taking to the pitch today. Now unfortunately no Diogo Jota, but we do hope he will be back soon. Obviously he's got a niggle of his own that he's dealing through, and Arne Slot made it sound like him and Gomez were on a similar trajectory in terms of the recovery. Obviously it can differ over those final days of the rehabilitation. He always is at pains to express that really, so we'll have to see what that means in terms of him coming back really, but the hope is that he'll be back soon. And obviously no Curtis Jones either, but maybe he'll be out for maybe a couple of games more, but we hope not. And it seems to me that Liverpool's injury list is really clearing up. They've had 3 out injured for a while now, but we hope if we get through the next couple of weeks, he can maybe even have a clean bill of health, which will be absolutely crucial, wouldn't it, coming into a key time of the season, and really, really contrast to what they went through last season with that horrendous injury crisis, which for me was the biggest factor in Liverpool ultimately missing out on the Premier League title. Now, obviously I'm talking about the team news and the fitness and the injuries, but what about the squad that's going to travel out to PSV? I spoke about this game not really impacting Liverpool's season as a whole, and I really think that it's going to have a say really in selection and what Slot is going to do in terms of who he takes out to PSV, and really recognise that this game there's not an awful lot riding on it, so Liverpool don't have to be at their absolute best. Now it's my understanding from talking to sources that it's very, very unlikely that we see Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah and Ryan Gravenberch travel out, and for me that is a very, very good call from the manager. They are the 3 most used players in all competitions this season in terms of minutes played, and so I think you just need to protect them when you can. If you've got a game like this coming up where it doesn't really matter whether you win or lose, in truth that's a great opportunity to take to rest them and leave them out. So it's my understanding very, very unlikely they will even be on the plane to Eindhoven, which I think is a boost. And there's a possibility as well that a couple more players are left behind. They are Alexis McAllister and Ibrahima Konate. They're both on yellow cards, which could potentially leave them with suspension for the next round, and so the desire to really protect them from that, because Liverpool could get a big hitter, couldn't they, in the next round when they get there in the round of 16. Could be any side really, so you don't want a couple of key players really missing out on that through suspension. So a real possibility McAllister and Ibrahima Konate will be left behind, which again, it's a sensible decision. It also gives 2 key players there a rest, and particularly when you consider it's Bournemouth coming up at the weekend, I don't think that's a bad decision at all, and I think Liverpool will reap the benefits of that if they can give the key men a bit of time to put their feet up really. Now of course all 5 of those players were involved in training, but we kind of expected that, but we will get confirmation soon. Liverpool are going to put a travelling party squad out. They usually do. We usually get pictures of them boarding the plane, so we will see who is involved there. But I think, as I say, it's my understanding that Slot is going to show his clear priorities in terms of his selection for this. And it's interesting actually going along those lines that there were quite a few youngsters involved in the training session today. Now when the players came out for the warm-up, there was an absolute humongous group together. Plenty of players who were involved in the under-21s, the under-18s were part of that as well. Now, the under-18s, or the youngsters rather, they went over to another pitch, the back pitch, to do their warm-up separately. And Barry Lucis was there, who's he coaches the youngsters as well. He was part of the training session as well, obviously overseeing the warm-ups and taking part in that. But I think it's obvious that quite a few of those, not all of them maybe, because there was quite a lot, but quite a few of those are maybe going to be sprinkled through the squad. I mean, if you were not taking McAllister, if you're not taking Ibrahim Konate, Van Dijk, Salah, Gravenberch, these are spaces in the squad that you're going to need to fill. I don't expect the youngsters maybe to start the game, but you do need to fill up the squad spaces, don't you? So I do expect, there's a possibility for quite a few of those to be involved. Just a couple of examples: Kieran Morrison, the winger; Isaac Mabaya, the right back; Amara Nalo, centre half. If you're not going to take Van Dijk and Konate, maybe a chance for him. And I think there's also chances for the more established youngsters who are really involved in first team training on a regular basis. Trey Ione involved today, Jayden Danns. I think there's a chance even maybe for a start for him in this game, because he comes on late in the Ipswich game. That felt like a signal to me that he's going to have some involvement in this PSV game. And I've been speaking to people behind the scenes. He's been training really, really well, putting himself in the manager's eyes, and maybe giving him a chance to say to the manager, look, you've got to reward me, look how well I'm doing. So I would absolutely love to see him involved. Unfortunately, in terms of other youngsters who might be, no chance of Rio Ungamoa being involved. He was part of the training session today, as he regularly is when the first team train, but it's no possibility for him to be involved, because he's not on the A list that Liverpool submit, which is to UEFA, which is their established first teamers. You have to put together your A list, and you can include youngsters on a B list, but they have to have been at the club for at least 2 years. And of course, Rio Ungamoa only signed from Chelsea over the summer, so he isn't going to be able to be on that B list either, so he can't be involved in this, which is a shame, because would have been a good opportunity to potentially see more of him. He did really well in the FA Cup, but of course there's more chances in that competition coming up, and more chances in general for him to be involved in the squad. So I'm sure he can't be too disheartened that he's not involved in the Champions League squad at the age of just 16, let's be honest. Now, I am expecting, as I say, just to wrap up, heavy rotation for this one, really. I think, as I say, there's possibilities, some big hitters being left at home, and that provides real opportunities for changes. I think, I'd love to see Federico Chiesa get some more minutes. I think Harvey Elliott deserves to get a start in a game like this. And, throughout the team, really, there are areas where you think you can make easy changes that don't weaken the team too much. Connor Bradley coming in at right back, Kostas Tsimikas at left back. So I think Liverpool can go there, they can make a lot of changes, still be able to win, or still be able to get a draw that will confirm them in top spot. Always nice to finish on top, isn't it? But also, of course, it will rest some legs and make sure Liverpool are in tip-top shape for Bournemouth, which I think is really is the priority at the moment, and that is a huge fixture coming up at the weekend. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm interested to hear what your selections would look like, what your teams would look like. Actually, one thing I want to say is that I can guarantee that Cody Gakpo is going to be the player in the press conference later when they travel out to Eindhoven. So that, to me, suggests he's going to be part of the squad at least. So there's one that you can hang your hat on. We'll have to see in terms of confirmation of that travelling squad. And as I say, let me know what your team looks like. Be interested to hear your selections. It's going to be a really interesting one, I think. So really fascinated to see what you would go with. And as usual, I'm going to ask if you can like and subscribe. Massively appreciated. And of course, I will be back for my post-match review. Hopefully, we're talking about another good win for a Liverpool team that I expect is going to look very different to the usual starting 11. See you then.